in statistics, there's basically two things that we look at when we're looking at what's called descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics are statistics that describe. They describe a population or a sample of a population. We also have what's called inferential statistics, and that's where we're trying to make inferences from data, or we're trying to recognize a relationship, or sometimes a difference, or things like that. What we're looking at this year is just the descriptive side of things. And in that, there are two main things we can look at. Measures of central tendency, where is the center of our data? And then also measures of dispersion, how is our data spread out? Okay. So as we're looking at measures of centrality or central tendency, when I talk about the center of our data or something like that, what are some terms that come to mind that you've heard? Mean, median, and mode. Okay, let's start with those basics. Okay, let's define them and also see some notation, and then we'll do a little bit of an exercise with that as well. All right, so first of all, the mean, there's actually two different kinds of notation here for mean. One if we're dealing with a sample, and another is for if we're dealing with an entire population. Okay? If we're dealing with a sample, we would use X bar. That's how you would read that, X bar. This is the mean of the sample. Okay, so for example, if I were trying to figure out something about the students in this school, and I just did a poll of you guys, that would be a sample of our data. Okay? The other one is the Greek letter mu. Okay? The Greek letter mu is the mean of the population. Okay? Now, that means, as opposed, if I wanted to figure out something about the school, I'm not just going to ask you guys, I'm going to ask every single person in the school. Okay? For example, you guys had elections recently for student government for next year, and they wanted to make sure everybody voted. They wanted the population's opinion, not just a sample of the population. Okay? It's very hard to actually get an entire population. All right, even in presidential elections in the United States, you know, if we get 30% of the people to show up, that's a pretty good year. Okay, just kind of sad that people care that little about who's running their country, but that's how it is. Okay, but anyways, there's a couple formulas here. One I'm sure you're familiar with. Okay, but the notation may be a little different. I'll use X bar. Okay. When we're finding the mean, we're going to find the sum of the scores, okay, the sum of the scores, and we divide by how many scores there were, okay? And we usually use n for how many scores there are. We can also look at mean as it relates to scores that are given with a certain frequency. And we'll actually do, the example we're going to do is actually going to use this, so you'll see it in action. But we have the sum of the scores times their frequencies over the sum of the frequencies. Okay, so this F is frequency. Okay, frequency of each score. Okay? So notice here, the sum of all your frequencies will be the same as n. Okay, when you're doing these are equivalent. Alright. Now, we use frequencies when, for example, we might have a lot of each kind of score. You know, for example, if we were calculating the average number of classes all of you take either like 5, 6, or 7. Maybe a couple take 8. Maybe. Okay, but we're going to have a lot of 5s, a lot of 6s, a lot of 7s. Alright, so we could, rather than put 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, we just count up how many people got a 5, and that would be the frequency. Okay, so it allows us to condense our data when we're collecting it. If we're doing something where everyone, or not many people are going to have the same value, like if we were measuring everybody's height, okay, then it really probably wouldn't be worth it to list frequencies, because while some of you might have exactly the same height, it's not going to happen a whole lot. Alright, so that's our mean. Then we have median. Anyone remember what median is? The middle score, okay? Now, the only kind of challenging thing with the median is, it's the middle, okay? And it actually will be one of your scores if you have an odd number of scores, okay? It's the middle of an odd, the middle score if n is odd, okay? So if I have 3 scores, you know, you can get the middle one easily. Alright, and you just see it right there. However, if I have 4 scores, if I have an even number, what do I do? Okay, to find the middle, you have to average your middle too. Okay, so it's the mean of the middle 2 scores. If n is even. Okay? All right. So that's pretty straightforward. And then we have the mode. Okay, what is the mode? It's the most repeated one. To use the terminology that we saw before, it's the score with the highest frequency. Now, it is possible that 2 different scores will have the same frequency. Okay? If the highest frequency is possessed by 2 different scores, we can have something that's called bimodal. Okay? Bimodal.
You have one.
What?
Can you have 1 and 2?
I think you can have trimodal. I'm not sure exactly how many you would cut it off at, though. That was a question 3rd period came up. Is that something you talked about in stats, AP stats?
What do you do with a bimodal?
I don't know. I don't think it has like a limit or anything.
Okay. So the if they ask for the mode and it's bimodal, you would just say the modes plural are this and this. Okay. Now the only time it is possible not to have a mode. And that's when all of your scores have the same frequency. Okay, if we were doing everybody's height and no one was exactly the same height, we wouldn't have a mode, because everyone has a frequency of 1. Okay, so it's possible to not have a mode, and it's possible to have more than one mode. Okay, notice though how each of these measures central tendency. Okay, for example, the mean measures the center because your mean is here, and then all the other scores are going to be distributed on either side, okay? And it's not necessarily the same number of scores, but if you added up the distance from that one to the mean, 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 and that one to the mean, all those distances added up would equal that plus that plus that plus that plus that plus that, okay? It's in the middle, kind of as a relative to distance, okay? All the points are evenly spread on either side of it, okay? So that's how the mean measures a central tendency. Okay. There we go. Now the median, that one's a little more obvious, okay? We don't care where the scores are value-wise, we just want the middle one out of all of them, okay? And we'll talk a little later about choosing the best one for certain data, okay? The mode is kind of like measuring the central tendency kind of by popularity. You know, which one is the most popular? Which one occurs the most? That's the kind of central tendency we're talking about. Okay? So each one measures a center of our data, just in a different way. Okay? Now I want to examine these by doing a little survey of you guys, and we'll calculate each of these. Alright, so let's see how many brothers and sisters you have. So don't count yourself. Alright, how many brothers and sisters do you have? We'll let those scores be X, and we're going to calculate the frequencies. Okay? So we'll start, some people I'm sure have no brothers and sisters. 1, 2, 3. Someone had 4 in third period. We'll see if anyone has more than that. Okay? So we're just going to go around and see what you have. So Jeremy, how many do you have?
1.
1. Okay.
1.
1.
2.
2.
4.
4.
2.
3.
3.
0.
0.
2.
2.
3.
0.
2.
2.
1.
We go. 2.
1.
1.
1.
Alright. And I'll put myself in there.
You have 3 also?
I have 3 older brothers, so. Okay. So, if we figure these out, we've got 2, 5, 6, 3, and 1. Okay? So total, we have 17 people, right? Now, understand what that represents. That 17 is the sum of our frequencies. It's also, you might see it as n in a formula, okay? So the sum of your frequencies, or n, is 17 in our case. Yes?
Could we be a population or a survey?
It actually, population versus sample depends on what you want. If I'm just looking at results for my class, then, well actually since we have absences today, it would be a sample of the class. If I had everybody here, and all I cared about was my class, that would be a population, okay? If we were looking at the whole school, then even if I had the whole class here today, we would have a sample of the population, okay? When you're talking about mean, the sample versus population isn't as big of a difference. It's only when you get to certain distributions and statistics that there might be a different formula, okay? But you, in this case, you would calculate it the same way either way. The place where there is a difference is when you get to standard deviation, which we'll talk about later. But let's take a look at how we would calculate our mean, first of all. You'll notice we have the sum of each score times its frequency over the sum of the frequencies. Okay, so we'll call this x bar. Each score, we have 0 plus 1, and we have the 2, 3, 4. But we need to multiply each of those scores by their frequencies. So there are 2 zeros, there are 5 ones, there are 6 twos, there are 3 threes, and there's 1 4. Okay? And we're going to divide that whole thing by the sum of the frequencies, 17. Okay? So, do a little bit of arithmetic. 5 plus 12 is 17, plus 9 is 26, plus 4 is 30. So 30 out of 17 comes out to what? 1.76. 1.76. Okay, good. So actually, let me see something here. You guys have more siblings on average than third period did. Okay, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, there you go. Okay, they had 1.43. You guys have, you know, about a quarter more sibling than they do. All right. So, does anyone have any questions about how we calculated that?
What is this for?
This is for the mean. Okay. This is for finding the mean or the average. So
Means average.
the mean is the word we usually use for average. Okay. Technically speaking, all the mean, median, and mode are all averages. Averages are measures of central tendency. Okay? If you want to get really technical. But usually when we say the word average, we're talking about mean.
It's the most accurate.
Okay, mean is the best term. Okay. Alright, so there's our mean. When we're dealing with median, okay, the median, we have 17 scores here.
So it's gonna be 2.
Okay. Now here's a common mistake people make, and sometimes they get lucky and it works out, but often it doesn't. Okay. They look at these scores 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's 5 of them, so I want the third one. That's not the median.
It's the second.
Okay. Because we don't have just 5 scores, we have 17.
The 9th.
So there we go. If you divide it by 2, okay, we get 8.5. So the 9th one is going to be the middle score. Okay? The median is our 9th score. Now, to find that, here's another thing that we want to look at. I'm going to add to our table of information here another column, and we're going to call this cumulative. Frequency. Okay? And what that means is that we're going to put how many scores are at that level or lower. So there are 2 with 0. How many have 1 or fewer? 7. We would just add the 5 to it. How many of you had 2 or fewer? 13. Okay? And then we add the 3, so we have 16. And your last number should be the total, okay? Should be the 17. If it didn't, then you added wrong somewhere. Okay? So, our 9th score is going to be a what?
It's a 2.
It's going to be a 2.
The second.
Because the first 7 are right here. And if I got into the 3s, I'm at number 16. Okay? Or actually, I'm at number 14, I should say. if I'm at a 3. So the ninth one is somewhere in those 2s. All right? So it's 2. Okay? We want the ninth score. Here's 2. The last number 1 is the 7th term. So the 8th term would be a 2, and the 9th term would be a 2. Okay? If you have the little marks here, you can use those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So technically, that one would be our median.
But
Okay.
we are finding the simple now. Medium is not from frequency. It's not from frequency.
We can use the frequency to help us. Because the ninth one, if you look at it, the ninth one is going to be between the 7th and the 13th. So we know it has to be a 2. Okay? All right. And then, lastly, what's our mode?
2. We have 6 tubes.
Our mode is 2. Okay? I almost did it. One thing to be careful about. The answers to these always have to be scores. Okay? Don't put, hey, my mode is 6. Alright? That's a really common mistake students make. They see, oh, there's 6 2s, so my mode's 6. Because they have that number stuck in their head. Okay? Make sure you're putting down scores, not frequencies. Okay? Alright, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? Alright. Now, let's see, just looking at our data, right? 1.76 is going to be, somewhere in here. Do you think that represents the data pretty well? If I said my mean was 1.76. Yeah, that represents our data pretty well. We can get a pretty good idea about the class looking at the mean in that case. All right. If we had the median, 2, okay, that's a pretty good representation of the data.
Why we know it's nice term, nice score.
The ninth score, because there's a total of 17. So if we want the middle, if you pick the ninth one, there's going to be 8 that are below that, and there are going to be 8 that are above that. Okay? The way you can get it, if you divide it by 2, you get 8.5. So the ninth one is going to be your middle score. You round up. Again here, the mode, most families in here have, or most of you have 2 siblings. Okay? Or I should say most. More of you have 2 siblings than any other number. Okay? Now, just briefly to mention this, when could one of these numbers, right? Let me say this. When could the mean not be a very good measure?
When someone has like 8 brothers or sisters.
Yeah, when there's a huge
Deviation.
deviation.
Okay, when there's a large, gap. You ever heard of the Duggar family?
Yeah.
That show 19 kids and counting?
Yeah.
They had 19 kids, okay? So if we had a Duggar in here with 18 siblings, okay, that would skew our results pretty badly, huh? I mean, if you throw in an 18, what's 48 divided by 18?
It's 2 points of being more.
2.6.
2.6. So we just jumped our average by almost an entire person, okay? That wouldn't then be a good representative number for our whole population, okay? And we'll talk about this more as we go forward, but in fact, in the example I'm gonna have you guys work on here in a sec, we're gonna see that sometimes certain values are better to represent a population than the other. And particularly, notice the median wouldn't have changed. We could have someone with 100 siblings and it's not going to change our median. It would still be 2. Okay, that would still be a better representation of all of our data. Okay, but obviously the mean would be skewed. So often when we have a situation where there are extremes that could happen, the mean isn't necessarily, while it's often the most popular statistic you'll see, it's not always the best statistic to use. What are some situations in real life where you might have very huge differences in numbers? What?
Population.
Okay, if you're looking at populations like of cities or something like that, or countries.
Ages.
Okay, what?
Ages.
Ages, okay.
Like
Income.
like
Income, alright, there's pretty much, especially when there's like a kind of a low that you're not really gonna get much below this, okay? But the ceiling is basically unlimited. Think about income is a good example. Because, I mean, you can make as much as you want, but pretty much everyone, you know, if you're not making a certain amount, then you're not making it, okay? So like the minimum is at a certain level, but the maximum can go forever.
you can have a horsepower also, like take the cars in the school, maybe there's like one car and 600-700 and then most are 200 horsepower.
Okay,
And, there can
Okay.
be deviation there.
alright. So, it's not always the mean, while it's the more popular, when you talk to people or whatever, if you ask which one they've heard of, I guarantee everybody's heard of a mean or an average. But they may not have heard of a median or mode, or they may not know what it is. But that doesn't mean it's always the best one to choose. Now, here we have some data on, we were just talking about income. Here are 25 employees, okay? And they did don't worry, you don't have to punch a bunch of numbers in, because it says on an interview for a job, the interviewer tells you that the average annual income of the company's 25 employees is $60,849. Okay? That is the mean. Okay? Average annual income. So here's a list of the actual annual incomes. And I went ahead and put them in order for you to help out a little bit. Okay? But think about this. It says, what are the mean, median, and mode? And then I want you and the person that you're working with to come up with a comment about if these are the numbers you saw, what would you think about the interviewer telling you that information? Okay? So figure out the mean, median, and mode. Think about what he told you, and then think about kind of what would your reaction be if you saw those results. Okay? So go ahead and get with somebody, talk it over.
Yeah. There you go. I got
See what you get.
这下面是列出来的，它决定在边上。
It's the 1300, so let's see which one.
Talk it over with somebody. Don't just sit there by yourself, but
33,
think about it.
So we use
它是属于什么的？
Oh, wait.
Is what? Is that?
Mr. Hampson, can we go off what they said with the average annual income, or do you want us to calculate it ourselves?
Well, you can recognize that as
Oh, okay. Because you know most of them.
No, it's not.
这差的很大。我的意思是说，他是觉得如果这种应该用拿来抽三个。 mean and mode and income 3个，还有 mean median
It is
mode
all
outside。
Look, the side.
The mean is correct, right?
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh, we're looking up.
So we're ready.
Yeah, I get it right.
没有 mode 的。
Oh, comment? I would I'd be like, I would take it. I would take it, like, cause there's some people that make profile, because that make 450. It's like the average is 60K, but there's only 4 people.
No,
Oh,
maybe
it's
like
60K.
one.
Not because there's like 2 that make like 250 and 470. So if they come in, we should ask to say,
Well, hang on, let everyone
would I take a job?
do it, we'll take comments. Okay,
也是1年的。
so what's the mean?
6849.
Yeah, that's what they gave us, okay, the mean, and tell you what, I'll use mu since that's the entire 24 employee population of the company, okay, is 60,849, okay? What's the median?
33,450.
34. 150.
Oh.
Okay. It's the 13th score, right? 25 divided by 2 is 12 and a half. You round up, you've got the 13th score. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so that's the median.
I didn't even see that on the side.
Alright.
Nice.
Okay. And then what's the mode?
The first one, 1250.
Okay, there's the mode right there.
No, I'm taking it.
Now, what would you say is the most useful of those 3 statistics to represent the academy?
Median.
The median, okay? The median is going to be the most useful one. Alright? So the median salary is $33,450. Okay? What?
They were asking what job this is, and I was guessing. Like
Okay.
teacher at school.
There's not a lot of
teachers
teachers
at,
right
like, they don't get 400,000.
No, but maybe the superintendent.
Yeah. I'm saying it like
Maybe a
education.
superintendent. And here's the part-time,
That's at around.
you know, whatever.
Bottom is like the CEO.
That actually wouldn't be
CFO.
too far off, actually. Anyways, so what are your thoughts here? Would the mode be useful?
No.
No.
No, not at all. Okay, here the mode is pretty much useless, especially because there's only 2 of them repeating out of 25. Okay, it's not really helpful here. What do you think about the mean?
It's inflated
It's inflated.
because of the.
Because of like, there's like a CEO, a CFO that make 470, 250.
Okay, yeah, this could be your CEO and your CFO, and maybe some
Vice president.
mid-level managers or something like that, and then these are all the regular guys.
Yeah.
Okay, and this 60,849, he's trying to make it seem a little better of a deal than it is, right?
But he's not lying.
He's not lying. Well, that's the thing. Statistics, and that's a big thing, is ethics and statistics. You cannot lie without being
Far from it.
ethical,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm not saying this is a horrible person. They probably just didn't even think about it. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, you know, this number sounds a whole lot better than this number, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but this is a more representative number of what's going on in the company. Okay. So, good. Good.
平均的工资是600。
All right.
1255 or 1.
So, I think,
Well, it's formal, that way crazy.
yeah, it's 1. That's as far as I want to go today. Okay. So.